So we're talking about the next chapter of this book is about future fitting. Right, chapter 6, and Evan went through the first 4 chapters of this book last week, and then he just went through chapter 5. And chapter 6 is a continuation of the application of the blended ecology, the idea of a blended ecology. And this book talks about future fitting. And if you're like me, when I first heard this word, I was a little confused. I kind of could use my context clues to figure out what it meant, but I didn't know the exact definition. And I think a good definition for this, or a good example for future fitting, comes from Matthew chapter 9. In verse 17 it reads, "Neither do people pour new wine into old wineskins. If they do, the skins will burst, the wine will run out, and the wineskins will be ruined. No, they pour new wine into new wineskins, and both are preserved." Now, I'm not super familiar with the process of making wine. But I kind of looked it up, and I kind of got a little basic understanding of why you can't reuse the wineskins. And the basic answer is when you're making wine, it starts to expand. And when it expands, you need a material that is holding its contents. You need a material that can withhold that standing and flex a little bit and spread a little bit, right? And so they would use these something like leather to help it expand, and it would be strong enough that even after it's expanded, even after it's gone through this process, it can still hold the wine, right? But then if you were to pour another batch of wine in and try to do it again, the leather's already torn down, the leather's already spread apart, right? And so you can't do 2 batches of wine with 1 wineskin, if that makes sense. You can't do another batch of wine in the same wineskin because it will burst and your wine will be ruined, right? So in this process, we learn that, and so Jesus is using this parable as an explanation to the Pharisees, who have built this rigid system for how the Jews are supposed to live, how the Jews are supposed to encounter God in these different circumstances, in these different moments. And Jesus is using this parable as a way to explain that his ministry and the work that he is going to do will not fit into those systems. It won't fit into the strict rules that the Pharisees have set in front of them. This is future fitting. It is looking ahead towards what the church will be, and seeing that the things that this current and this next generation is looking for, the things that we're talking about in this blended ecology of going out and creating these micro churches, sometimes they won't fit into the systems that we currently have. So the book talks about the attraction model and how the church is built on the attraction model. The church is built on bringing people in. But the current church isn't built for bringing people who have not known God, people who have not known Christ, in. And so we have to go to them. We have to take the step and go to these people. We have to make new wine with new wineskins. We have to make new ministry in these new, fresh expressions. And so our aim in future fitting is to take the ministry that we do within the church, the things that we do within the church, and keeping the foundation of those things, but taking them elsewhere and taking them into our community. Now, what does this look like? I'm not saying we need to do more service work in our community, which we do, but this is more about creating these micro churches, creating church outside of the church walls. And so it looks like this. Maybe your committee meeting, instead of meeting in the church conference room, we meet in a restaurant. Maybe your Bible study, instead of meeting within the church walls, we go walk together, and we do our Bible study. We take our classes and we do them somewhere else. Now, I'm not trying to push you outside of the church, because we have amazing facilities here, and we want to use them to the best ability that we can. But the first step in creating these micro churches of people that maybe aren't a part of the ministry that we're doing here is we have to go and do the stuff that we do here, the ministry that we do here, and we have to take it outside our walls. So I want to introduce something to you that might make you tense up a little bit at first, but I want you to relax. And so the book, Rooted in the Wild, right? It talks about this 50-50 rule, and it applies it to pastors. It applies it to full-time clergy. And the idea is that 50% of their time, 50% of their ministry is spent caring for their congregation. And 50% of their time, 50% of their ministry is spent in the community. It's spent outside of the church walls, building these fresh expressions. Now I want to apply it to you. Take the ministry that you do here, the things that you do here, the classes, the groups that you're a part of, the service opportunities that you're a part of within our church walls. Now take that time and split it in half. Now half of that time we're going to keep. The other half, we're going to spend that time going out into our community and creating these micro churches, these fresh expressions of what church should be. See, we should put 50% of our time caring for the current tree, 50% of our time caring for this here, for the people that we have here, and 50% of our time planting new seeds and new fresh expressions within our communities. So we need to do less stuff within the church walls and more stuff in the community we are trying to serve. Now, if you're like me, this is scary. I am a little bit of an introvert until I get to know you, and then I become an extreme extrovert who will not stop talking. But when I first meet somebody, I keep very within myself. I'm quiet. And so it's kind of scary for me to do this, to go out into the community and build these micro churches. But I want to give a little framework for how we can do this. A little bit of a framework. And there's a 5-step process that the book talks about. And the first step is empathize. Right? We have to empathize with our community. We have to think about what our community is going through, how they feel. We have to empathize with them and figure out how can we fit our micro churches into our community that is broken, that is hurting. Right? Our second one is we have to define. We have to define the problem that we're trying to solve. See, there's needs in our community. There's things in our community that we can begin to help with, right? Maybe there's somebody in our community, there's somebody that we know that is struggling to make ends meet, and they just need an extra meal. And so we start a group at a local restaurant, and we decide we're just going to feed some people. Or maybe there's a group of you that really enjoys walking, and you're looking for a walking community, and so you begin this, you define the problem, which is there's no walking community. Right? The third is where you get to dream. It's the ideate process, the ideate step. And you get to dream big. And I want you to dream big. You're going to dream really, really, really big and start really, really, really small. Because that's the first step. Or maybe your dream is to have this group that meets at a fitness center in town, or a restaurant in town that weekly you meet 10 people per week, right? Maybe that's your goal. Maybe that's the dream that God has put on your heart. But we have to start really small, and this is where the prototype comes in, the fourth step. In the prototype phase, you start to build it. You start to think, how can I start small? What is the first step in starting this? See, the first step in starting this is we have to go and find these people in this community and begin building relationships with them. Example of this, I go to the middle school, the local middle school, in the Twin Lakes district. I go once a week, and the idea and the goal of this was to begin building a relationship with the school. And now there's nothing that has progressed farther than me going in for lunches, but lunches have been great, right? I get more and more interaction each week that I'm there. They're starting to trust me a little bit more, which I'm kind of scared of. Like the other day, they counted me as the second lunch monitor, and I was like, whoa, that's a little too much responsibility. But it all started because I began to build this trust with their principal, with their other lunch monitors, and it helps that one of the lunch monitors is also my mom. And there was some relationship building there as well. But all of these things happened because I simply went in, Justin and I simply went in and asked, what can we do? And the first thing that they said was lunch. Because it gets loud. The first thing that they said was lunch. And so now we've built this prototype. And now we have to test it. We have to go out and try it. And this is the scariest part because it requires you to be okay with failure. Because if I'm being honest, there will be things that you do, things that you try, that will end up in failure. But it's not meant to discourage you. See, this phase is a 5-step phase. But what's not in there is that you can go about this phase any way that you want. You can get to the test phase and end up testing and then realize I need to go back to number 1. Or maybe you need to go back to number 3. Or maybe it almost worked. You almost got it to go. I just need to go back and build the prototype a little bit more. And so we go through this 5-step process of building these micro churches within our community. And the goal of this is not to bring people here. The goal is to take what we're doing here to them. It's to take the ministry of our church, the things that we do within this church, and take it to the people that God wants us to serve. The future of the church is not what you see within these walls. The future of the church is out there. But they will never come here unless we go to them.